Lego Star Wars is the most popular Lego theme by far. It is my favorite out of all of the Lego sets Lego make. Lego Star Wars is the coolest in my opinion. Now, they have been making separatist battle droids for a very long time. Over 20 years, they've been making everything from rocket battle droids with the red security markings. They've done a Kashyyyk battle droid. They've done the Commander battle droid. They've even done a really cool sand red battle droid from the Geonosis Episode 2 battle, which is one of my favorites. They've also done super battle droids, droidicas, all sorts of different brick-built versions. But the one thing they've been lacking lately is their blasters for their Separatist Army minifigures. Now, if you guys haven't seen my blaster video, definitely check it out. But I wanted to make more accurate blasters for droid minifigures. Obviously, we've seen the old classic Lego blowhorn used as a blaster with the stud on the end. And then we've also seen the more modern upgrade, which definitely starts to look more like a blaster, but it's very generic, and I still don't know what it's based off of. But they use that for clone troopers and for droids. So I ended up making the actual E5 blaster, which is the designated blaster for the Separatist battle droids. And if you take a look at the comparison between the three different versions here, we have mine and then the two Lego versions. Obviously, mine's the most recognizable. And like I said, these are really inexpensive on my website. They're only 50 cents each. It's a great upgrade for your battle droids. But I wanted a little bit something more heavier. And I've always loved the Clone Wars. Now, if you guys have watched the Clone Wars, you probably have seen some pretty wacky weapons. And one of them was the J10 dual blaster cannon. Now, what's crazy is I've been watching the Clone Wars, over and over every other year. And what's crazy is there's not a lot of information on this specific blaster. So I wanted to make it in Lego. No one's ever made it before. And so this is the J10 dual blaster cannon. It's been seen in a couple episodes of the Clone Wars. One of the most famous ones is probably Clone Cadets or Landing at Point Rain. It was also seen in Supply Lines and Innocence on Ryloth. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the history of the J10. I'm just going to be reading this off of Wikipedia. I think this is really interesting to read about, but it talks about how a lot of the Separatist equipment was made in unregulated droid-run assembly lines in factories where quantity was more important than quality. Sounds very familiar. And then also, it was rarely deployed due to many drawbacks, so it seems like it wasn't a reliable weapon, so that's why we didn't see it a whole lot. And what's interesting is it says that during the Galactic Civil War, a lot of rebels actually found old Separatist bases with these lying around, and they actually ended up taking them and using them at outposts and whatnot. So they also opted to replace the faulty J10s instead of fixing them. So once again, just a very unreliable weapon. It sounds like, once again, George Lucas was a very big fan of World War II, so it sounds like he could be basing this off of maybe some of the German weaponry or maybe some of the Russian weaponry that just wasn't that reliable, but they just made a bunch of. Or it could be also related to, let's say, a Japanese machine gun. Same thing, where quantity was more important than quality. But looking at the J10 itself, like I said, this is 12 modular parts here. So if we take a look, let's go ahead and take a look at the bipod first, or actually the tripod, because there is 3 legs. So this is made up of 3 legs. The legs are the same piece. And then what's nice about the legs is it is a grip point, so you can use that to grab with a minifigure if you want to, so you can have him carrying that around. And then we've got the main plate on the top to put all of the legs in. They just plug in. Then the main hole in the top is a standard bar connection point. So what's cool about this is you can get this tripod and you can use this for other things. I've shown this in the past with my M2 machine gun. You can use this as the anti-aircraft stand to get it higher off the ground and get a minifigure down below and under it. That's a really cool thing about this. So I'm kind of excited to see more people use this tripod with different accessories, not just Star Wars. And then moving on, we have the actual pintle mount, which is the pivot point that goes into this plate here. And then what's cool about that is we can have a full 360 rotation, and then we can actually angle this up and down just a little bit, so that's pretty cool. And that is attached to what I call the receiver block. And so the receiver block has 4 holes, there are actually 2 that go straight through, and that's what attaches the main receivers to this receiver block here. And then it's got a small hole in the top for this, I don't know what it's called. I'm assuming it's kind of like a recoil spring or a gas tube or something like that. And that goes all the way down the length of the barrel to the nozzle plate, I call it. So the ends of these barrels are actually removable, and I did that for a couple reasons, to get a little bit more detail on them, and then also to have it more modular so you guys could use those potentially on other things. Once again, the back stud connection there or grip connection is just a standard bar, so you can use it on different things. We've got the two barrel nozzles there, the nozzle plate that kind of looks like an upside down Y with the tail chopped off, and that's how you connect this gas port to. And then the main actual guns itself, they're this exact same thing, but just mirrored. So it's a left and a right hand side, and you have the little magazine on the left and the right hand side. Now, what's cool about this is you could probably use this for some World War II or World War I machine guns. It looks like a giant water-cooled machine gun, which is what's really cool. And it's got the cool venting on the back. Like I mentioned, it looks like a very large E5 blaster. If we take a look at the venting comparing the two, it looks very similar. So that's pretty cool. And it's a pretty chunky piece of plastic, but once you put it all together, it definitely looks really nice. And that's what's cool about it is it's a completely modular system. You guys can take it apart. There's no glue required. All I do, ask you guys is just be careful. I wouldn't be taking this thing apart, every other day, but it is possible to be, rebuild it if you need to, and no glue required, which is what's really nice. Now, I offer this in black and gunmetal, and all the pictures I've seen on the Clone Wars, it looks more accurate in gunmetal. It just looks better, but if you guys want a solid black one, I also have those as well, but I personally like the gunmetal. And what's crazy is all 12 of these parts, it is only $12 for the full machine gun, which is a really good deal compared to, let's say, my quad blaster, which I think is $25. So if you guys want a very inexpensive droid upgrade, this is a great one to grab. If you're making a mock, this would be really cool to have up on outposts and whatnot and have droids gripping them. And we can actually show that here. So if you replace the droid arms so they have both of the straight arms, you can actually grip both of the grips and have him look like he's actually holding onto both grips and aiming down sight, which I think is perfect. And I think we nailed the scale of this. It's just perfect on the height, and it looks great. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Okay, so when you get the dual blaster cannon, you will get a QR code that sends you to a YouTube video on how to assemble it properly, but I wanted to go over that real quick in this video. So first things first, I would take the 3 tripod legs and the tripod plate and simply just plug in all 3 of those legs into the designated holes. All the legs are the same part, so it doesn't really matter which one you put them in. Next, I would find the receiver block itself and the pintle mount, and so it looks like this. It's the little swivel piece here, and then the block that has the 2 holes that go all the way through. So once you grab those, you can assemble those, just push that together there, and then find the 2 main weapons themselves, and you attach them with the pintle facing forward, and you just put these 2 pins into the 2 holes on both sides, so there's a left and a right hand side of the main blaster there, and now you've got the receiver block connected to both the blasters there. Next up, find the 2 little barrel end pieces and just plug those into the ends of both of these barrels. Then find the barrel nozzle plate, I call it, which kind of looks like a Y or a V, and then slide those on the end of the barrels in themselves and slide them all the way up against the back there, and it'll be nice and firm fit there. Now what you can do is you can mount this to the tripod itself, just plug that in, and then you have the last piece, which is kind of like the recoil spring, and what you do is take that and slide it through the back of the receiver block first, and then it'll end up mating in the, the front of that plate there. So that's the way I do it. I would suggest doing that. Once again, no glue should be required at all for this. It's perfect, snug fits. You can still rotate everything, and it still feels nice and secure, but you can still, like I said, pose it up and down and rotate it 360. If you guys have any issues with this, feel free to message me, but it's pretty self-explanatory, but just letting you guys know how to assemble it properly. Another thing that we did make was I made a vibro blade for commando droids. So I always liked the concept of the commando droids, just a higher end battle droid, more expensive. You don't see them as much, but when you do, they are really cool to watch in the Clone Wars. And so I wanted to make their vibro blade here. So I make these in gunmetal, which is a really cool color. It has a little bit of metallic shine to it. And these are only $1 on the website. So if you guys want, once again, another really nice upgrade for your commando droids, you can get that along with the E5 blasters. But that brings me to my last point of this video. I've got right now only 3 blasters. I've got the J10 dual blaster cannon, I've got the commando blade, which isn't even a blaster, and then I've got the main E5 blaster. What other droid accessories do you guys want me to make? That's the question for you. I actually already have a design for a droid backpack that would be molded in tan, but I want some other weapon ideas. So if you guys have any, let me know in the comments down below or on Instagram. That's the best way to give me ideas directly. And then I've also thought about, what if I did like custom molded droids, bodies and arms and posable legs, stuff like that. I'm really interested in. So let me know what you guys think, and we can make a whole video series out of it. But other than that, check these out on the website. I'll put a link in the description for all of this. Thank you guys so much for the support. That's the best way to support me, is to check out my website and watch my videos. Other than that, I'll see you guys in another video. Peace out.